everybody, Gina DeLuca here. All right, today I'm going to be doing something, I did this about a year ago, popped up in my memories, and I thought, I haven't done that in a hot minute. Let's do that again. So, I'm going to be using this nifty little contraption from the paintpourstore.com. Paintpourstore.com. I will just be using this aspect of it. You can do lots of cool things with this contraption, but I'm just using this part, and it's going to give me a flower-like effect. So I'm going to be doing a straight pour, a spinning spiral type straight pour, but using this. So it creates a very cool pattern of cells. I love patterns of cells. I like patterns. So that's what we're going to be doing. The colors we are working with, I have Amsterdam and Turquoise Green, DecoArt Americana Decor Metallics in 24 karat gold, and copper. And I have this little Piggy in Persephone. This I have mixed with a little bit of Joe Sonia in the bottom of the cup. Just enough to cover the bottom of the cup. Added the pigment to that, and then added Floetrol to that. I don't measure, so, you know, measure with your heart. The paints here have been mixed. 1 part paint to 2 parts Floetrol. Again, this is an eyeball measurement, so it might sometimes be closer to 3, never less than 2. I would definitely err on the side of more Floetrol than less. The consistency, so it's 1 part paint, 2 parts Floetrol, and then I will add some water or a mixture of 90% water, 10% Floetrol to the paint and Floetrol mixture until I get the consistency I'm looking for. This is about a 2 on my consistency scale. It is making a mound, but it's disappearing quickly, and it's making a nice, thin, even stream off of my stick. If your stream is not even, if it kind of gets thick and thin and thick and thin, that means your consistency is not consistent, and you need to keep on mixing. Before we get started, have you seen the Fluid Art Inspiration cards? If you have, you can fast forward about a minute. But if you have not, what we have are 52 cards. There are 42 technique cards, and each technique card has an associated video here on YouTube that gives you all of the information that you need, the exact paint brand, color, consistency, the technique, the recipe, all of the things that I can't fit on a card. This is a picture of the painting in that video. This box contains a tip for this particular technique, and down here at the bottom you have the color palette that was used in this painting. And then these 2 boxes can be used together as the basis of a 2-color palette, or you can build off of those colors. And there are also 8 bonus color palette cards. Each one has 5 color palettes. You can use all of the colors or just some of the colors. Mix and match the bonus color palette cards with the technique cards, and you have more combinations than you could ever paint in a lifetime. These are available at my website, ginadeluca.net, and also at amazon.com. All right, the first thing I'm going to do is put some paint in my cup. I'm doing about 2 ounces in there. And I do that because I want to make sure that I have enough for my pour. Sometimes I might pour a little heavy onto the canvas for my base coat. This ensures that doesn't happen. I also would like to reserve a bit to go on top of my pour puddle. So I will try to save a bit. Could have saved a bit more, but that should do it. The reason that we lay down a base coat is so that our paints slide around evenly on our canvas. If you don't have a base coat, something has to stick to the canvas first. And if it's not a base coat, it's going to be part of your pour. The center of your pour puddle will roll over top of the edges of your pour puddle. And sometimes you get some really cool stuff happening on those edges. And if you don't have a base coat, you might lose that stuff. I like to cover the edges of my canvas as well before I pour. My mix for a straight pour is pretty thin, and sometimes, especially when you're using Floetrol, it might not stick to the edges of your canvas all that well, and you might have areas where the paint appears thinner and you might have a bit of canvas showing through. If you cover the edges of your canvas with just straight paint ahead of time, that is one less headache that you'll have to deal with later. I like to troubleshoot before there's trouble. It's a blessing and a curse. I save myself a lot of headaches, but I give myself a lot of headaches trying to foresee the future. Okay, popping the bubbles in the base coat. If you don't pop them now, they will come up through your pour and give you little tiny pinhead size cells. That is also a reason why I use a color for my base coat that is in my pour. All right, going to put some paint. And actually, first, because sometimes this takes me a second, I'm going to center my doodad. Going to figure out how I want this to sit. And then I want to make sure it's in the center. All right, that feels pretty centered. I'm going to put some paint in the cup. I'm going to start with the copper. Always check your consistency before pouring into your cup. The sauce may thicken upon standing. I'm pouring from up high. I want this to sink. I want these paints to churn into each other. That will give me some cool boulder cell action, some 3D looking paints. Okay, so the DecoArt paints, the copper and the gold, are cell makers. This little Piggy pigment that I have here is not a cell maker. What I'm hoping is going to happen is it will blend with the other two cell makers and make something cool happen. We'll see. It's an experiment. Worst case scenario, it just becomes part of the background. It would still be pretty. My gold thickened up a hair, so I'm just going to add a drop of water to that. Thin it out. Really important that your paints are the same consistency. And even if you check them right before you start pouring, sometimes they just thicken up on you. All right, here comes the gold. I think this is gonna look like a hippie painting. Okay. And some of what I have left on top. The cell makers react to the glossier paint. So the cell makers are matte, and when they are up next to this glossier paint, it has a hydrophobic effect. And that hydrophobic effect pushes the other paints away and creates cells. So we'll see what happens. Wish that I had saved more of that base color, but oh well. All right, so I'm going to pour relatively quickly. I'm going to spin slowly. I don't want to pour faster than the vessel can handle. So I will adjust my pour rate accordingly. A lot of this is going to get spun off. I love these colors together, always. The copper and turquoise together are just a magical combo. Going to get closer to the puddle as I get toward the end of my cup. This gives me more control. My center is still going to be a center, so I want to keep that in mind. If I can make this center look more like a flower, I will do my best. That changing direction thing is something that I would do when I was doing my roses. Sometimes it just gave a little bit more of a rose petal type look as opposed to just my typical Fibonacci action. Okay. I feel like I don't breathe when I do that. I'm going to just adjust my center a hair. Just to try to accentuate a rosebud type thing happening there. Okay, I can see this is not level, it is pulling to one side. I have to keep this moving. Going to torch some of these edges, pop some of these bubbles. I'm going to give this a light spin. I'm still going to let this sit for a bit, but that spin will help to pull some of this out of the center. carefully remove. Okay. That looks pretty rosy to me. Sort of. All right. I think I'm gonna give this a spin. I'm going to slide this way because I want this side to pull a little more than this side. That is one way that you can kind of help direct the paint. If you think about when you're on one of those merry-go-round things in the park, when you're in the center, you don't really get pulled very much, but when you're on the edge, you do. And the further out towards the edge you are, the more you're getting pulled. The same thing is going to happen with your painting. All right, I want to give these edges here a little bit of juice. I do want to cover the whole thing. I should have sat this on the side earlier. Let's see. What do I have left? This is all going to get spun off. I just want a little more juice on those edges. Sometimes the corners can dry up a little bit, so having a little leftover paint is helpful in these situations. And your edges too, if the edge is dry, it might resist the paint flowing over it easily. Like that's what's happening right here. So I'm just going to zhuzh up these edges a bit. You can use some of your drippings too, because it's just going to get spun off. Yeah, see my corners dried up a bit, and that does not help to get your paint flowing. All right, let's spin this again. Okay, I need this corner to go, so I'm going to push the painting in that direction a little more, so that corner is poking out, and that should be getting the most pull right now. Okay, well, my alarm just went off and stopped my recording, so fun. All right, I think that's it. I'm gonna leave it be. I like what's going on. I love the patterns. There's some really pretty colors going on in here. I think when this dries, it's going to be even prettier because the Floetrol really kind of dulls down the sparkle, especially with the pigments, with this little Piggy. So I think these sections, I can see the Persephone in these lines here, and I think it's going to really pop But also, I think I'm going to get more cells popping up. And those often pop up in a pattern. So you can already start to see this pattern of cells that are popping up. And that should be happening throughout this whole thing. So I'm going to let this sit and do what it's going to do. And then I'm going to bring you in for a close-up. Back in a few. Okay, here it is. It's been sitting for a bit. And you can see more cells did pop up. This thing is glowing. My little rosy center looks pretty good. Some beautiful colors going on in here. The Persephone grabbed onto that copper. Made some cool things happen. But this is going to be a very sparkly piece once it is dried and varnished. And there it is. Head over to the paintpourstore.com to get yourself one of these cool contraptions to make these awesome patterns. They have different kinds with different numbers of petals that you can get. And use code Gina15 to get 15% off. You can check out the description box below for links to my other affiliates. Grab yourself some of this little Piggy pigments from Fluid Art Company and DecoArt. There's also a coupon code in there for DecoArt. So be sure to check out that description box. If you use those links, I make a small commission at no additional cost to you. So that's a way to help a sister out without costing you anything. So you can see the blue, there is like a layer of sparkle over top of that blue. We'll see what that looks like once it's dry. But it is a bit of the copper sparkle. So it's kind of muting that turquoise a bit in some of those parts, but it looks really cool. I'm not mad at that. Oh. Yeah. So there it is. I hope you learned something. I hope you enjoyed. Please do like, share, and subscribe and all that good stuff. Do check out the description box below for links to the affiliates, as I mentioned. My website, ginadeluca.net, where you can find my art and music and the Fluid Art inspiration cards for sale. You will also find the link to our Facebook group. Go make some art. Join us there. Post your masterpieces. Ask your questions. Get some inspiration. A good time is had by most. There you go. Well, that's it for me. Oh, also, if you are subscribed, be sure to click that bell so you get notified when I do put up new content. YouTube changed some things, so if you aren't receiving notifications from your favorite content creators, that's probably why. You got to click the bell and then decide how often you want to receive the notifications. If you want some, if you want all, be sure to do that. Okay, that's it for me, y'all. I hope you have a beautiful day. Now go make some art.